Hi guys, today we're going to learn how to code an app using Visual Studio 2022 Preview, .NET Blazor server-side, Entity Framework, and Microsoft SQL Server. We're going to start off by launching Visual Studio 2022. We go create new project. And we search for the Blazor template. And we select Blazor server app. Go next. We give the app a name. I call it ICE 911 Assist. I'm building an emergency services app in South Africa. Go next. So on .NET 6 Preview, create. So this is stock standard now, Microsoft Blazor. It comes with 2 pages which you can use to test and have a look at how the framework is set up. One is the counter and one is the fetch data. So if you launch this, you get to see how the framework looks by design. Still starting up. Okay, it's almost there. So there we are. This is counter. This is not using any JavaScript. And this is fetch data. This is the web view. This is the responsive mobile view. Okay, everything looks good. That menu system was by default as well. Close that. So we're going to create a new page now. And it's a Blazor component. And we're going to call it user information. Okay. So this one will change to my information. We take this out for now, we don't need it. And if you go into the shared folder, you'll find the nav menu. This is how the menu system is built up. Take copy of this and we'll call this my information. Alright, and here we'll call this user information because the page is called user information, but it's specific to this user when he's logged in, as in my information. So the user information, so we go to the user information, we'll just borrow this snippet here. And we'll say user information. So this is a route that we're connecting to the menu system here. So when we load the project, it should now load that page, which is user information page, but the label says my information, but it's the user information page. Then we'll continue to add the HTML to that. So the first thing we're going to do is create a div tag, and he's got a class of row content. Then inside this div is another div with a class called md2, and this will be first name. Then another div tag which takes an input, and he'll have a class of form control. his class is call md4. There are tutorials on this these div tags and this bootstrap call md. You can look at that if you don't understand that, but for the others we can continue. So this will be surname, and this is preferred name, which is like a nickname, right? So we can launch that, see how it looks. By giving the class form control, we're making it bootstrap enabled, which you'll see now. If I go my information, and that's the bootstrap text boxes, and it snaps in first name, surname, preferred name. Okay, now we're going to launch SQL Server. We're going to create a new database. We call it ICE 911 assist. Say OK. Then we're going to open up tables. We're going to create one new table. This is the user information table. It's a user ID. It's an int. I'm going to make this the primary key, and we're going to go here and make identity specification true. So it'll auto increment. Gonna go first name, we go surname, and we're gonna go date created. It's a timestamp, and we're gonna give the date created a default value of get date. I'm gonna save that. Table is called user information. Gonna refresh, and there's a table there. Alright, then we're going to create a new user for this database over here under security. Collapse that. New login. Gonna say ICE user SQL authentication test $123 test $123. Remove all this defaulters. He maps to ICE and he's the database owner. Okay, say okay. Okay, we'll just give it another name. ICE user test. Because of my previous demo, the name already exists. It's not deleting off. ICE user test is fine. I think that is the one that was complaining about. You can delete that. Hopefully it goes. Yeah, that's gone. Right. So ICE user test. That's the database. ICE 911 assist. Now we go back to Visual Studio and we set Visual Studio up for the entity framework. So you go tools, NuGet package manager, and you get manage NuGet packages for solution. There's 3 packages you need to bring in. You expand dependencies. Now it goes by default on the install tab. Just flip it to browse. And search for design. We're looking for Microsoft Entity Framework core.design. You just highlight here, you tick this box and you say install. Then you say I agree. So that's installed. It should bring up the packages here. That's fine. Perfect. SQL Server. We're looking for SQL Server. That brings up the framework core.SQL Server. You say install. Agree to the terms and conditions, the user license agreement. And then the third package that we need is the tools. Microsoft Entity Framework Core .tools. Then you say install, agree. So now the 3 packages are in. So the next step now is, we don't need this for now. We need to build up a command to do the DB scaffolding, which will bring the database into this project. Okay, so I'm going to open up Notepad, which will help us type this command out. So the command goes like this: scaffold DB context space server equals to localhost. This is the localhost. Initial catalog equals to, this is the name of the database, which is ICE 911 assist. Just double check this database name. So uppercase ICE assist. Persist security info is equal to false. User ID is equal to, where's this guy, logins, ICE user test, ICE user test. Okay, and the password was test123 $. Okay, then we say, it's going to move to the next line, Microsoft.entity framework, that's small, core.sql server, and the output directory I'm going to call it entities. That's my preferred naming convention. And the context for the representation of the database context is going to be ICE 911 assist. And we're going to use the -f flag to force an update every time we update the database. Let's hope this works. There's no spellings. I see one already. Server scaffold-db context server is localhost, initial catalog, persist security info false, user ID is that, password Microsoft.entity framework core.sql server, output directory will be entities, context is ICE 911 assist. Take that, Control C, then you go to the Visual Studio tools, NuGet package manager console. You drop that in and press enter, and it should make a connection to the database and scaffold the database. Didn't seem to work. What on earth happened here? I think we can kill this command. Tools You get package manager. Still doesn't want to stop. The only way to do this now is to kill the Visual Studio completely and start it again. Maybe that'll work. But I know what the problem was. It was a typo. Open the project up. While that's loading, we'll fix this. The problem was after test, you're going to have an apostrophe, a double apostrophe. Okay, let's see what happens. I'm going to grab this command again. It's initializing the PowerShell. So we'll paste that command in, hit enter. Now it's working. This was missing this apostrophe and it broke the whole command. There is an error. Keyword user ID not supported. It's user space ID. There, it's building successfully now. It's done. So if you look here, this popped up after it built. Why is this file here? Okay, so this popped up here. That's the database context, which contains all the entities modeled from the database, the ERM, the entity relationship management. If you go here, that's the table that we created. Just going to clear this and just minimize it. Okay, just pull the project. Let's check if everything's still working. Everything still works. So this was the page that we were working on, right? That's the Razor component that has the user interface. Now we need to give it a backend code base and then plug that into the entity framework and save the user information. So we're going to go here and create a new file, which is a class, new class, and we're going to call it user information base. So it sits underneath this file, and this is going to have a namespace of user information base, and this inherits component model. Component just checking what it was, base. Then we're going to fix this with the IntelliSense using Microsoft ASP.NET Core Components. Then it needs a default function called protected override task on initialize async, and return the base. Okay, cool. Now we go here and we inherit that class file at inherit user information base dot user information base. That's inherited. Okay, don't think we need that. Then we're going to create a function. Well, in the class file, first things first, in your entities folder here, this was the user information entity that came up with the entity framework. We can just use it directly like this. User information. Let's just resolve this using the entities. I prefer an uppercase here. Get set, right? And on initialize, this is the first thing that happens when the page load comes to this function. We're going to say user information is equal to new user information, right? So that complex class, complex entity, or complex type is now initialized to a new, right? Then in the Blazor page, we're going to bind like so, user information dot first name, just like that. Okay, put the apostrophes inside there. So user information, the complex type from the database model, is accessible to the page, to this class file, right? And then becomes accessible to the page because we're using the inherits. We then bind the user information model first name to this input class, this input element over here, right? Then on surname we do the same thing. We go at bind equals to user information dot surname, right? And preferred name, same thing. We're binding this entity I don't think we created preferred name. Okay, that's a good example. Now we didn't create preferred name, so we need to go back to the database, design, just insert a column, preferred name in varchar 50, save that. Okay, go back to the project, tools, package manager, the console. I wonder if it will still remember the last command. Yes, it does. So we're going to rescaffold the database with a force update using this -f, and let's check if it works. It's building, it succeeded. Cool. If you go back here now, user information, I don't know why it does that. Come up here, maybe if I just close it, it'll stop doing that. Here's the column, it's come in from the database, preferred name. We made an update. So that's how the -f works. So every time you update your database, you run your command and it will do that. You run this command here with the -f, right? So back on the Blazor page, we should get this thing now. At bind is equal to user information dot preferred name. There we are. Now we need a button for saving, so we'll just put a button here. Just copy that. I don't think I need that, we'll just leave it blank. And then this should be type is equal to button, and I think we can give it value is equal to save. Right, now we give it an event that will fire off when we press save. It fires an event to the backend code. Okay, and I think it goes like this. On click equals to double apostrophe, open and close round bracket, pointing to, it's kind of like a delegate, save user information. Okay, let's just fix that. So when you click the button, it's going to go to a function at the backend code that says save user information. So we now need to go and create that function. Public void save user information, and open and close brackets. We'll put a breakpoint here and watch this thing in motion. Okay, let's go. So we load the page, my information, test 1, test 2, test 3. Press save, and here we are. It came into this event, save user information. If you look at this entity now with the two-way bindings, there's test 1, there's the surname test 2, and there's the preferred name test 3. So it's gonna bind it from the front end, the user interface, the Razor page, which is the HTML. It took it from this binding here, and we've got it in the C# file, and now we can just save it into the database. Okay, so we'll write the code and go ahead and persist it into the database. So here in the data folder, we can create a file and call it ICE 911 data access layer. I think we should call it, let's keep it standard, although it's lengthy. We could use Pascal case, I prefer it like that. ICE 911 assist data access layer. Data access layer, it looks neater like this for me. I'll go with that. I'm going to implement iDisposable. Just leave it blank. Right, so now we're going to write a method. We're just going to use it as a void for now, but in the next version we'll feedback whether it was successfully saved or not. I'm just trying to get through the tutorial. Save user information. Okay, and save user information takes that entity user information, this user information. We'll use the IntelliSense to resolve this. It's added that package at the top here. User information, right? So we're going to pass in this type from the user interface to the data access layer, and we're going to go using ICE 911 assist. This is the DB context file. Okay, we can call it ice equals new ice db context, and when we say ice dot, we now get all the functions available to us, and there should be a table in here called user information, right? We just tab, the snippets are taking over from the Visual Studio 2022 preview. I haven't seen that before and I'm just using it. So it took this user information and added it, this entity adds it to this table, right? And then we just say ice dot save changes, bang, finished. Now if I go to the database and I do a new query here, and I execute, there's no data, right? Now we launch this, we'll put a breakpoint here. There is an error, let's fix this error. Where are you? This is the DB context here, by the way. See, ICE 911 assist is a DB context, and I'm using the word ICE DB context there. So I see what the error is. I think it was the snippet did that. Should be fine now. Okay, cool. Let's put it in web view. My information. First name. Give me a cool name. John. Can't really think of a name right now. So it's John 1 and John 2. Preferred name is John. Let's make this David. John David. Right, cool. So when I press save, okay, one error. We need to call the database layer using ICE 911 assist data access layer del equals to new del. Just need to resolve this. Can you come up? Here we are. Resolving. So it's now added that package because of the namespace. Inside here it's probably inside here it's .data. Okay, let's close this. So it's data access layer dot save user information, passing in this user info to the backend. There we are. My information, John David. John David is his preferred name. Press save. There is John on first name, John David on preferred name, surname is David. Exactly what I typed in on the front end. I'm going to step into F11, step into this function, yes. Here we are in the data access layer, Okay, this is the DB context. Now we're going to add this entity into the database. And when we say save, it is now gone in, right? If I go to the database now and query it, there's the first entry coming in. So I think I'm going to stop the tutorial at this stage. The next version of the tutorial will work on the validation, making this button a little neater, and the rest of the fields. So thanks for watching. It was quite an informative tutorial, and see you guys later.